Sister Location, a game that tried to be so different that it kind of ruined itself in the process. Or was it ruined? How's it going, everybody, and welcome back to another discussions video. This video is one that I've been looking forward to so much because I can finally just go in and talk about Sister Location in its entirety and my personal thoughts and experiences with the game. Now, this video is going to be a bit different since it's a game breakdown and not like a character or theory video. So it's going to be a bit different than what you guys are probably usually used to for a discussions video. I want to focus more on my personal experiences with the game rather than like an objective view of the whole game. So I'm not going to go over every tiny detail and things that didn't really apply or affect me when I was playing. I'm just going to talk about my experiences with the game, things that I liked, things that I didn't like, and that's really going to be about it. Anyways, with that out of the way, let's just jump right into the video with my history prior to me finally playing Sister Location. When the game first released, I actually really liked it. Now, granted, my only experience with Sister Location was watching Markiplier's playthrough of the game, but I still thought it was a really fun game. It looked unique, it felt like it offered a lot of unique experiences for the player, and it just seemed like a ton of fun. But as time went on, and I got more invested in the FNAF franchise, I began to hear and see more people talk about how this game was actually really bad, and I began to sort of change my view on the game. I went from liking it to it slowly becoming a game that I disliked and hated because of watching other people talk about it. Now, the major catalyst for this was actually very recent, and that was with what is probably one of the most popular and well-known videos about Sister Location, and that's Aya's hour-long discussion of the entire game. Since that video released, I actually agreed with almost every point made in the video, and Sister Location at that point was my least favorite game, and I hated it. I actually held this feeling for a while, and only until recently has that actually changed. I was actually really quite surprised with what the game had to offer when I actually got around to playing it. And so my current thoughts on the game are a lot different than they used to be. Now, I'm going to save that for a little bit later in the video, but let's just say that it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. So with just a quick, brief history of the game out of the way, I want to just actually get into the breakdown of the game itself. Sister Location has a lot to offer, and I don't think I can do justice by just going over the whole game in one section, so I'm going to break the game down in a night-by-night basis. However, there are a few aspects of the game that don't just pertain to one night, so I do want to talk about those before actually getting into the main nights of the game itself. Probably one of the strongest elements of the game has to be its visuals. The locations, the settings, animatronics, and the jump scares are some of the best the series has ever seen. Even though I prefer the look and the feel of the original 4 games, I do have to say that I love the visual elements of this game. It definitely does a great job of feeling distinctive in the series. I would say that my favorite location or setting in the game is a very obvious choice, and it has to be the elevator, just because it looks so distinctive and recognizable compared to the rest of the series. Now, that being said, the rest of the series, the previous 4 games, also have very distinctive looks and feels, but something about Sister Location just seems way more like refined and like it just seems a lot more well built than the previous 4 games. Anyway, for those who have been with the channel for a while, you'll all know that Funtime Freddy is up there has one of my favorite animatronics in the entire franchise. His design and voice lines are some of the best that the series has ever had, in my opinion at least. But speaking of voice lines, the voice lines in this game are really good. I think every voice actor and actress did a great job in their respective characters and making a unique impact on the franchise. Obviously, like I said just a second ago, my favorite voice lines are from Freddy, but all the other characters have great lines as well. I love that the game uses voice lines or characters talking because it gives me the ability to sort of like have a conversation with them, I guess. For example, like during the Freddy minigame in Night 2, whenever Freddy would say something like, "Oh, you know, I see you over there in the dark," or whatever his lines are, I would just respond with like, "Nuh-uh, you can't see me," or something like that. And I just think it makes it more fun, and it makes the game just more entertaining, because you can kind of have like a fun back and forth with these characters because they're actually talking to you. Anyway, those are just a couple of the overarching game elements that I wanted to talk about before getting into the nights themselves. So with that, it's time to just jump into night 1. Night 1 starts with you going down the elevator and into Circus Baby's rentals. Now, right off the bat, I've got a good thing to talk about and I got a bad thing to talk about. The good thing is the elevator. Now, I know I already went over this, but I just wanted to quick bring it up here since it does apply to the nights. The elevator looks really good, and especially the way that it's a cylindrical elevator works really well with Click Team, and I think it comes across as the best setting in the entire game. Just want to quickly bring that up again because it does apply to the night. Now, that's the good part, but what is the bad part? One thing: Hand Unit. Hand Unit is like a strange character, if you can even call him a character. His jokes and lines can be funny at certain points, but the first interaction, I didn't really have a whole lot of fun with it. It's the stupid, gets your name wrong and calls you Eggs Benedict joke, and it's just not really all that funny. Maybe because it's like the same in every single person's playthrough, but it just was never that funny to me. I'll bring up more about what I think they could have done different later in the video, but I think that Hand Unit definitely needed some work, especially because a lot of the jokes are just the same and it's always getting something wrong, and it's just not all that funny. Now, I'm only going to bring up here because I don't want to have to talk about Hand Unit in every single night, but I just thought it was worth mentioning. Anyways, moving on to the actual night itself, I think that it serves as a good first night of the game. There's no actual gameplay, but I think that is a good thing because of how different it is to the rest of the FNAF games. It's nice to get used to how the game works and how things feel and get used to the new style before you have animatronics trying to kill you. But other than that, there's not really a whole lot that goes on in night 1. It's just a pretty boring night, but I think it serves its job as an introduction into the new game and style. Now, I want to do something fun at the end of each night segment by giving each night a score out of 10. I just think this would be fun and a good way to sort of get across what I feel about each night of the game without having to go on and on and on about describing it. So for night 1, I'd have to give it around 6 Faz coins out of 10. There's not a lot going on here. It's pretty boring, but there's nothing bad that goes on, so all around it kind of just evens itself out. I will quickly bring up the after night TV section. It is nice to have some downtime between the nights, and I think it does a good job of making the character feel like they're a real person rather than just some night guard. You can actually just go home and sit and watch TV after your shift, and that feels a lot more real than just fading into the next night like the other games do. Anyways, I just thought I'd bring it up real quick just because it's part of the game and you kind of have to mention it, but I'm not going to talk about it after night 1 since it's all just the same anyway. Oh, also the popcorn is a nice touch. Night 2 starts off with us going back into the facility to work on our next set of tasks. Just to get this out of the way, this is by far the best night and my personal favorite night of the entire game. It's got the most going on, the most variety of voice lines, and it's just all around a fun game. Anyways, getting into the night, the first major event slash mini game that happens is when you enter Circus Gallery. After the power is cut, Circus Baby, who you happen to not be able to see, tells you to hide under the desk. Before I continue with the night, I do want to talk about Circus Baby real quick and her lack of presence in the game. Aside from her voice lines and the lifeless suit that you see in Night 5, she's nowhere to be found in this game. For those of you who have been with the channel for a little bit, you'll know that I like to bring this fact up whenever I can. How about we don't? How about you go back to sister location? Oh wait, you're not even in that game. It just makes me disappointed that we could have gotten a new series villain, but instead it just became one of the series' biggest disappointments of a character. I'm not going to talk about it for too long, but I just wanted to bring it up. Anyways, back to the night. So, we have to hide under this desk and keep a sheet of metal between us and the Biddy Babs. I actually found this to be a kind of fun minigame. I mean, there's not a lot going on, but it was still kind of enjoyable. The Biddy Babs kind of talk to you and talk to each other, and so it kind of makes for fun, like, back and forth, and I even cracked a few jokes in my playthrough. All in all, it's not the most entertaining section, but I still had fun with it. Moving on, we next have to enter Ballora Gallery. Now, this is another fun minigame, and despite the fact that Ballora has a scripted section of her crossing the screen, I still had a bit of fun with this night. Not much really happens in this minigame, so there's not a whole lot to talk about, but it was still fun. The fact that you can that you have to hear her and then quick stop and wait for the music to go away. It's a pretty easy concept, but it is still quite fun. Anyways, moving on to the next and final minigame of the night, which is definitely the one that's the best, is the Funtime Freddy maintenance room section. I love this section, and it had a ton of fun elements to play. Even though I did it in one try and I wasn't jump scared at all, I still had a lot of fun with this section, and it was still tense seeing Freddy move closer and closer to you. I also had fun with this section because Freddy talks, and so you could talk back to him, like I mentioned earlier. With the actual minigame itself too, I had a ton of fun. Having to distract Freddy while also rebuilding the system is a cool and unique twist on the sort of cam style that FNAF usually uses, and I thought it was just a nice addition to the game. It really makes it feel like it's an actual FNAF minigame rather than just some random minigame that happens to be in a FNAF game, if that makes sense. Although it wasn't all that hard, it was still a pretty tense night, and I had a ton of fun with it, and it still was pretty tense throughout the night on whether or not Freddy was going to get close enough to jump scare me. After this, you just go back through Ballora Gallery, she talks to you, it's a bit creepy, it's a bit fun, and then the night ends. In the end, this is absolutely the best night, hands down. There's just so much going on in this night, and it is a ton of fun. I'd have to give night 2 a solid 8 or 9 fast coins out of 10. Great minigames, really fun, and while it does feel a bit easy and there's not an actual ton of gameplay, it was still enjoyable. Now, in my playthrough, this is actually where my hatred towards Sister Location was starting to go away. I actually was really enjoying this game, and I was having a ton of fun. And Night 3 didn't stop this either. There's not a whole lot to talk about with Night 3, since there's really only 2 quasi minigame sections, but I still had fun with this night. The first section that you encounter is the Funtime Foxy section. Now for this, you have to make your way to Parts and Service by going through Funtime Auditorium. You're given a flash beacon to use against Funtime Foxy, who will occasionally appear when you use it. This section is actually really tense, and I had a lot of fun going through it. I never got jump scared by Foxy, and it wasn't really all that like creepy and horrifying, but it was still pretty scary seeing him just show up in front of you, and then the next second he's gone, and it's like, whoa, he can just appear and disappear. Not much gameplay here, but it was still fun. Once you get to Parts and Service, you have to work on repairing Freddy. To do so, you just click on a bunch of random buttons until Bonbon jumps off Freddy's arm. Once you're able to hit the button on Bonbon's chest, you're done with Parts and Service, and essentially the night is over. It's actually a pretty boring minigame, but the fact that we get to see Freddy and Bonbon again makes me like it a bit more. Anyways, after you're done with that, you go back into Funtime Auditorium, where you'll get jump scared by Foxy, and that will bring you into night 4. If I hadn't known that that was going to be what happened in the game, I probably would have actually gotten scared by the jump scare, but I knew that that was going to happen, so not all that scary, but would have been if I didn't know. Now, the fact that this night is pretty boring and that there's not a whole lot going on here does have to have me lower down the rating that I give it. So I'm going to give it about 6 Faz coins out of 10, same as night 1, just because there's not really a whole lot going on here. Anyways, moving into night 4, I knew what to expect, but nothing could have actually prepared me for the night itself. An hour and 15 minutes. That's how much of my time in life was wasted on this stupidly difficult night. If you couldn't tell, I have absolutely nothing positive to say about this night, and it's all bad. Well, okay, I lied. There's one positive part of the night, and that's when it ends and I can be done playing it. This night is by far the worst FNAF anything I've ever played, and I'm not exaggerating. To break down the night, you start off with Circus Baby being all evil, and she tells you that she trapped you in a springlock suit, and then you sit there and you watch Ballora get the absolute crap beat out of her, and she just gets destroyed. And then Circus Baby does some more talking, and some more whatever, and then the night begins. Kind of a fun intro, I will admit, but the night is bad. Now, I'm not sure if this was the intention or not, but this night does everything in its power to trick you into worrying about things that don't matter and not telling you important pieces of information that do matter. First off, as the night progresses, a swarm of mini arenas begin to climb into the suit, which looks like something that you should be absolutely worried about. It looks like a game mechanic, but it is not. There's absolutely nothing that happens with them climbing in there, and it's essentially for aesthetic and looks only. Alright, so you have attention placed in an animation that does not actually matter and is not some sort of mechanic. So, with that amount of detail given to something like that, you would think that the rest of the night is actually super well explained and has a lot of attention put into that as well. Wrong. You can die in 2 different ways during night 4. Either the mini arenas climbing up the side of your suit, or if you don't keep the spring locks wound up enough. However, the mini arenas jump scare you no matter which way you die, so you never actually know what killed you. There's a super easy change and fix to this that I'll get into later, but it feels like every effort was put into this night to make it unreasonably difficult for no reason whatsoever. And what is even worse is that aside from being scared that you're gonna die and have to do the whole night over again, it's incredibly boring. Nothing entertaining about it, nothing happens, it's all super dark, and it's not engaging gameplay. It just sucks, and this night is awful. I absolutely hate this night. It's the worst thing ever. If you've seen my video, you definitely know. So I'm giving this night 1 Faz coin out of 10. I don't even think it deserves 1 coin, but it only gets that 1 coin because the night eventually ends. I almost gave up playing through Sister Location at this point. I just had enough of this game, and it was really bad, but I knew I had to at least get through night 5. Night 5 starts off with us going back down the elevator and into Circus Baby's rentals. We are told that we need to go to Parts and Service to work on Circus Baby, and we do so by crossing through Funtime Auditorium again. However, there's no actual threat when you cross through the first time, and I actually like this. If the night had some really cool gameplay or content after this intro section, then having a false sense of security by making the night start off with nothing attacking you is a really cool choice. Too bad this night is also the most boring night in the entire game. Anyway, before getting to that, back to the story, I guess. We enter Parts and Service, where we see the lifeless suit of Circus Baby just sitting there on a conveyor belt. There's actually a super cool detail and in an interesting thing in this night, and that I don't see a lot of people bringing up, and it's the fact that you can actually see Ennard standing behind Circus Baby. You can see some wires and other parts like poking out behind her and moving around, and they disappear once you actually begin the night and like work on the keypad section. So Ennard is just standing behind her, and I'm guessing that's why you can kind of hear her talking to you, since Ennard's right there. I think it's actually really cool because it does make the Ennard jump scare here make sense, and not having somebody else jump scare you. It makes sense that Ennard would, since we know that he's in the room. Now, the keypad section, I had a hard time with it, and it took me a good few tries to get through. It's because it's so finicky, because it can take 2 seconds for you to go click a button, and either the game gives you 2 seconds to click that button, or you take 2 seconds and then Ennard just jump scares you. And there's no like, it doesn't feel balanced. It feels like they give you no time at all to do anything, and it just is pressing buttons, so it's pretty boring. Now, once you finish up with clicking some more buttons, you have to go back into Funtime Auditorium, where you have to follow Circus Baby's instructions to reach the scooping room. I'm not sure if I was doing it wrong, but I would follow her instructions and still get jump scared by Ennard. I even had to look it up to see if I was doing something wrong, but I was doing it right, so I'm not sure what was up with that. Anyway, you eventually get to the scooping room and get scooped by Ennard, and that's where the game ends. Overall, a very boring night, the most boring night in the game, so I'm going to give it 3 Faz coins out of 10, because at least Circus Baby showed up. We got to see her, even though she wasn't alive, but we got to see her. I know people are going to ask about why I don't really cover these, but I never actually played Ennard Night or Custom Night. By the time I finished Night 5, I was so done with the game that I didn't even want to bother trying to get through these, especially Ennard Night, since I know that one's really hard. And I'm not one that's just going to go into the files and change and cheat to get my way to Custom Night. So I just haven't gotten around to it. Now, I do want to play Ennard Night at some point, but I don't know when that's going to be. Anyway, I just thought I'd bring these up real quick because I know people are going to ask, and I just want to talk about it before people just leave tons of comments being like, why didn't you talk about Ennard Night, or why didn't you talk about Custom Night? I never played them, never experienced them, so I have nothing to say about these nights. Now that I've gone over each night, I do want to talk about what I think could be changed in each night if I was given the opportunity to go back and change stuff about the game. I know this means absolutely nothing, but I thought it would still be something fun to include in the video. To make things a little bit more interesting with this, I thought it would be fun to only limit myself to one change per night. That way I can't like change an entire night and be like, oh, you know, I don't like night 4, so it's going to be something completely different. Like, no. Only one change, and it can't be anything too crazy. Anyway, let's just get into the night 1 change. Alright, so my change for night 1 isn't anything too crazy. It's not like I'm going to add tons of gameplay here. I'm only going to change about the thing that I talked about earlier, which is hand unit and the Eggs Benedict joke. I thought a good change would be to actually give more names to this. So more names for him to pick from. Like maybe if there's a list of 10 or so random dumb names that he could pick at any given playthrough, it would just make things a little bit more different. That way, instead of it just being like every YouTuber or every person's playthrough of the game is Eggs Benedict the entire time, it could be some other random name. I don't have one off the top of my head, but it could just be some random name, and that way things are a little bit more different, and it would encourage people to play the game more than once. I just thought it'd be something fun and a bit more of a smaller change, but definitely a good one. My change for night 2 is a really small one as well. I would just add a shadow or silhouette of Circus Baby behind the glass when she's talking to you in Circus Gallery. That way it just gives her more of a presence in the game, and it isn't just her being voice lines in a slumped suit. She could actually have a presence in her own game. Again, not a major change, but one that I thought would help improve the game more. The change for night 3 is going to be a little bit of a bigger one, but not anything too crazy. So I would add a more minigame element to the Funtime Freddy repair section. So the change would be to add a combination of the system reboot minigame from night 2 and the spring locks from night 4. So after you push all the buttons on Freddy and he opens up and Bon Bon jumps off his arm, I would add more buttons that you'd have to hold down and sort of like charge as like a system scan or a system repair or something like that on Freddy. So there would be one on each arm, one on each leg, maybe a couple in his chest and like one on his head or something like that. And you'd have to hold these down to reset each of those systems. And as you're doing this, you'd have to flash Bon Bon with the flashlight to keep him away. He could pop up behind Freddy or just anywhere around the room. So you'd have to quick go over there, scare him off with the flashlight before going back to work on Freddy. And then after you're done resetting Freddy, then it's just like the rest of night 3 where you have to press the button on Bon Bon to get him to stop, and then the night's over. Not a big change, but it does actually turn button clicking into a minigame, and it carries over some different gameplay styles from other nights and makes it more fun. The change for night 4 is the most simple one by far. I would add an effect that shows when the spring locks fail. I know I brought this up in his video, but I thought it was a really good idea to have it be that the spring locks would close and show you that you died to the spring locks rather than you just not knowing how you died in the game. I think it improves realism of the game, and it helps people know how they died and where they can improve in the night. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say about this night because I hate this night so much. Night 5 is definitely going to be the biggest change by far, but still not changing all that much. So it would start out the same. You go down the elevator, you go through Funtime Auditorium where nothing happens, and then you go to Circus Baby in Parts and Service. You do the same thing, keypad, whatever, yada yada, and then you move back into Funtime Auditorium. Now here's where the change happens. So instead of Circus Baby telling you go forward, go up and left or whatever it was, and you have to just follow her instructions in the dark, it would be a completely different gameplay segment, and it would actually have gameplay. So instead of just her talking to you and you moving, you actually will have to use skills from the other nights in order to beat this one. So my idea is that once you enter back into Funtime Auditorium, Circus Baby would just tell you right away, go forward and left. And that's it. And then, as you're doing that, you'll have to use the flash beacon to check for Ennard, because Ennard's base mechanic here would be like Funtime Foxy. So you would use the flash beacon to scare him off, whatever, like Funtime Foxy. But because Ennard is a combination of the Funtime characters, there's more than just one mechanic. If you hear Bellora's music start playing, you'll need to stop immediately and not use the flash beacon. So it'll be like you crossing through Bellora's gallery. You'll hear the music on one side or the other, and make sure that the music stops and goes away before continuing. There would probably be some sort of faint noise to let you know that it goes back to Foxy, but once that noise plays, you'll be able to use the flash beacon again like normal. However, there's also one more mechanic I thought would be cool to use. If you hear Freddy laugh, then you need to use the Bonbon, like have Bonbon talk to him to calm him down. This way, you also bring in another mechanic of Freddy, and now you have 3 cool mechanics that you've already had some practice with in the final night. Once you get rid of Freddy and he calms down and he goes away, there'll be another faint noise to let you know when it's Funtime Foxy. That way, it's not like completely hard and against you. Of course, once you get to the door, then the rest of the night is the same. You get scooped, whatever. I think this would be really cool because it turns night 5 into a mini game rather than just the most boring night in the game, and it combines previous mechanics that you've already had practice with. So it feels like a good escalation of the night system, and it makes it more fun. Oh, and one last change I would include with this, I kind of include it with the one change, is there would be a checkpoint once you enter Funtime Auditorium after doing parts and service, because if you die, I don't want you going all the way back to the start of the night, because that's the dumbest thing in the world. So there would be a checkpoint there so that you don't have to do this to a keypad section every time. Although I didn't really cover these nights, I did think I could give one change for each night. Just a basic one from what I know about them. So for Ennard night, my only change would be to add a checkpoint at the start of his night. That way you avoid the keypad section because that's the worst. And then for custom night, I would make it that you could actually customize it instead of just using only pre-existing challenges. I think then that way, you can actually customize your night. All in all though, not too many major changes to the game, just stuff to make the game feel more cohesive and an actual game rather than just tons of random crap thrown together. Just some closing thoughts. I thought I'd just give a quick simplified re-review of everything I've been over. So overall, I really liked the first half of the game. Tons of fun, a lot of cool and unique elements, visuals, animatronics, and voice lines really good. However, nights 4 and 5 really drag the game down. Night 4 is just the worst. I absolutely hate this night, as you could probably already tell. Worst thing ever. And night 5 is just boring beyond belief. Nothing happens, it's so slow, and it's just mind-numbing. So those 2 nights really drag the game down. That being said though, I am passionate about this game, and I would label it one of my favorite games in the franchise. To wrap things up, this has been a fun video to make, and it's nice to finally just talk about my thoughts on Sister Location. I really do like this game, minus the last 2 nights, but I would definitely recommend this to anybody who hasn't played Sister Location yet. Definitely worth playing so that you can make your own opinions about the game. I don't want people to just see a video and go, alright, this person must be right in that this game sucks. I like to make my own opinions on things, so I would definitely recommend people play it themselves to make their own opinions, because maybe stuff I brought up people disagree with. I mean, obviously that's going to happen, so I just encourage you, play it if you want to. Anyways, that'll be it for today's video, so be sure to go check out my Shameless Plugs, linked in the description below. Be sure to leave a like and let me know your opinions in the comments section below. Be sure to subscribe to see more content like this. I thank you all for watching. I really hope that you enjoyed this video, and maybe keeping a bunch of killer animatronics in your basement isn't a good idea. See you next time.